Bianca Best is here, and she is a woman of impact. Bianca is an award winning global business leader. She's a best selling author and the founder and CEO of the Burnout Business and Energyscape Method. She's a certified coach, keynote speaker, solo parenting mother of four who is passionately eradicating the world's burnout epidemic at scale. So if you're the kind of person that wants graceful productivity, kind leadership, if you're looking to unlock your human potential and have that big impact in the world, in the lives of others without burnout, then Bianca is exactly the person we need to hear from right now. You're in exactly the right place. So Bianca Best, great speaking with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to be here, and I'm honored to be able to talk about this really important topic.
And why is it so important? Because there's the hustle culture, and there's also the worry about not living up to your full potential. And you wish that there was a third option, right? To get what you want without killing yourself. So how do we go about that?
Well, that's it. I mean, there's really sort of in the 80s, we really sort of leaned into this myth of having it all. And so we worked hard, we played hard, we got our goals, we set our agendas, filling them, packing our lives with more, more, more. But actually, at no point did we go, well, hang on a minute, how can we do more, more, more? And so the culture of succeed and chase success at all costs kind of permeated into society. And then simultaneously, you've got the sort of technological explosion, meaning that we've got access to information and each other, more rapid pace of change and transformation in every dynamic of our lives. And now we're at this point where, funnily enough, the world is in crisis because we've got a burnout epidemic that is globally impacting us on an individual level and collectively and at a macroeconomic level. It is impacting every echelon of society. So I care about it big time. I care more about it on a personal level, having suffered from burnout and observing the workplace today, seeing more and more people afraid of burnout impacting their success as they look across the new year horizon. More and more people are afraid that burnout is out there. And so dreams are shrinking, and I don't believe they need to.
I agree with you. When we should be able to have it all, but in a better, more strategic way, and not with the guns blazing and then wondering why the world turned into what it did. Like the way you put it, like of course it's what happened, right? With the all these expectations and all this acceleration and all this trying to keep up
Mhm.
and maybe not looking at the big picture. And when this term burnout comes up, I sometimes get frustrated because you mentioned a moment ago that it's kind of like some scary dark cloud that's out there. And sometimes I come across people that use it as an excuse or a crutch. And it's like maybe they're just having a bad day or maybe they just need to adjust some things. So, as far
Mhm.
as this big, vague concept called burnout, are there like subcategories or are there ways that it expresses itself? Are there types of burnout?
Well, it's holistic. It's really important to look at burnout as impacting the entirety of ourselves. And for many years, as I dabbled with how to manage my own burnout, I took initially the route of, well, it's just physical. Burnout is just physical. It's when you're really exhausted. So it's all about depleted energy. And it's not just about feeling physically depleted. And I learned this through dabbling with, okay, well, if it's just physical, I'm going to get more sleep. I'm going to give up alcohol, give up sugar, stop eating processed foods. I'm going to exercise more. I'm going to really just focus on the physicality of me. But that wasn't enough. Burnout still continued. So then I went into, well, there's lots of well-being stuff around the mental health side of things. And thank goodness we all talk about that a lot more. So I started exploring my mental state. So I went into the world of mindfulness, meditation, journaling, gratitude, everything that we know is good for our hearts and souls. So then I was doing the physical and the mental, but still that wasn't enough. And for me, the missing link and what I work with my clients and work with businesses on is the emotional dimension of ourselves. Because until we step into that place where we're actually regulating ourselves emotionally and moving from that survival state of stress into a place of harmony from an emotional state, learning how to manage our emotions and pay attention to what our emotions are telling us, as in, this feels uncomfortable, I don't feel right here. Leaning into those triggers, exploring them and examining them until we can self preserve in such a way where we're in emotional harmony, then we manage to stop the burnout threat. So it's the physical, it's the mental, and it's the emotional. And I really believe that. So there's no one solution over there in the physical box. It's about addressing all three of those aspects. And when we do, quite often we unlock this incredible potentiality to really thrive.
I love your overachieving in this story where you said, first I'll work on the physical. Let me do 17 things, which all those things you listed, those are good starting points, and people should be, not drinking and eating better and drinking water and exercising. But then there's more, right? Then there's the immense emotion, or the mental. People should be journaling, thinking about that. But then the emotional, that seems to be the sweet spot, right? That seems to be where the most work is needed, maybe because it's really vague. And I think that we've all been there. We've all come across that, of fighting our emotions, ignoring our emotions, letting our emotions get the best of us, and really like squandering good opportunities, right? When you get too afraid to take a risk, when you get
Yeah,
too angry at someone, that really holds you back. And but it seems like a huge problem to solve, right? Getting control of your emotions. So how do we even attack that?
well, it's not even sort of getting control of emotions. It's really understanding how to work with our emotions and recognizing the fact that any intense emotion that we feel, whether it's anger or fear or even joy, it tends to be a burst that lasts no longer than 90 seconds. That's it. So the actual emotion that stimulates all of those different chemical responses in our bodies, that only lasts 90 seconds. What happens next is up to us, because we then can intervene with that physical sensation that will have been manifest through the emotional, and then react in such a way where we are directing our thoughts into a more positive state. So yes, an emotion will arise, but it's up to us to work out what happens next, basically. So emotions are teeny tiny things. The way I like to work with emotions is to lean into the negative ones that are triggering discomfort, disharmony, and ultimately dis-ease in the body. Lean into those particular emotions and examine them and understand what's creating them. And that really is the gold, because there we can look at, well, hang on, why is this uncomfortable and what can I change? Because that is the thing that we can always control, our attitude, our reaction, our response to things and situations and circumstances. So if we're feeling any level of discomfort and any horrible emotions that we really are not enjoying, then it's up to us to go, okay, I know that this intense 90-second emotion is going to pass. If I stay here and keep thinking the same thoughts, keep thinking the same thoughts, then I'm going to keep triggering that emotion, keep triggering that emotion. And if it's uncomfortable, we don't want to stay there. So we've got to work out, what can we actually change in our lives, in our circumstances, that we can control to help us stop triggering those emotions that are uncomfortable. Because that's where stress, long-term stress on the body, that's core to burnout.
I love this strategy. You have to imagine how many people before us, how many billions of people have lived whole lives and not been aware of this or not taken steps to solve the problem. I love how you say here that emotions are small things, and the burst just lasts 90 seconds, and it's up to
Mm.
us to try to justify and say, hey, like that's just how I am, or to try to renew it. It's kind of like when they say, if you're overweight and you're trying to lose the weight, well, your body's like maintaining the weight. It's not like the weight just sits there, right? You burn calories moving around,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah, yeah.
continually like keeping your weight up if you say that you're overweight. And so if you're always angry, if you're always fearful, well, you're renewing that. And it's time to look at these triggers you're saying, basically, like what's leading
Yeah.
to these bursts of bad emotion. And it's a fascinating concept. And to help us get a real good idea of what this is all about, I'm curious about you and your story, because I know that you say you're a single mother of 4 and you have gone through all these kinds of ups and downs. So tell me about what you're all about and what led you here.
Thank you. So I started my first business in my late 20s, accidentally, just had an idea. I created a gift for a loved one that was a personalized poem arranged with photos around it. Everybody that saw this gift said, "Oh, where did you buy that?" And so, where did you get that? And so I thought, could I make that a marketable commodity? And indeed I could. And I leaned into this passion that burst inside me to create a gift business around personalized gifting. This was back in 2004. So I learned a lot about myself because I just followed a passion, an idea that electrified me with, I could do something here, something magical. And I already had 2 little children at home with me, and I just would put them in the double buggy and knock on printers' doors, go around industrial estates, go, "Can you help me? Do you want to work with me?" Until I built a business. And that business scaled. And 10 years later, it was omni-channel. I had concessions in department stores. I had a big direct-to-consumer website. I had a big trade manufacturing business. And I had learned an awful lot about myself and how, with the right energy, attention, and focus, anything is possible. A bit like what you're doing with the podcast, how you're leaning into a passion and idea and you are taking it places. So I had an incredible decade. During that decade, I also fell pregnant again, third pregnancy, surprise third pregnancy, it was twins. So throughout that period, I had 4 young children under 7 and a business to run. And it was a lot of excitement and joy and bliss. I love being a mother as well as I love working, but I kept leaning into grow the business and grow the family and grow the houses and get pets, and everything kept expanding. And again and again and again, I was slamming into walls, suffering from burnout. And this is what led me to really start to work out how I could self-manage to continue to achieve and have the success that I wanted and be the present mother and the lovely daughter and wife and, the version of me that I wanted to be. I wanted to experiment with how I could do that without constantly hitting burnout after burnout, because I would be catastrophically laid low. I wouldn't just get a common cold. I would get absolute flu, which would then become pneumonia. I would be hospitalized. One of the worst burnouts I had, I was hospitalized for total immune collapse, told that my body was basically shutting down with such intense stress, because that's what our bodies do when we're perpetually stressed. And I'm ambitious and I love the fizziness of life, and I don't want to shrink any of that. But I didn't know how to self-regulate. And when they said to me, you're really stressed, your body's starting to shut down, I was like, don't be ridiculous. I'm not stressed. I'm living my dream. Because, I didn't know that actually being perpetually on is not sustainable. So, and it took me many years to learn to sort of work out how I could actually achieve everything I wanted to achieve. I mean, I had warped beliefs like if I had childcare, I was failing as a mother. So I was trying to do all of this without childcare. And that took a lot of therapy and a lot of inner work to go, it's okay. Childcare is cool, because then you can have an impact as a mother and impact as a businesswoman. So that's why a lot of the work that I do is let's start examining what are the beliefs that are keeping you stuck in a particular way of doing things. After I sold my business, I fell into corporate. And then I've had an incredible decade again of learning how to scale the corporate world. And that was a whole new world of expansion and political agendas and lots that I couldn't control but was part of. And I had to learn, well, how do I weave in my strengths and still have impact in an arena that isn't necessarily driven by me and my own passions. So I learned a lot there again, and still would always pursue goals, and really couldn't burn out in a corporate environment. No one's going to let you have 2 weeks to just go off and have a really bad cold. You can't do that repeatedly. So I had to self-manage. And this was the arena where I learned a lot about that emotional trigger, the emotional triggers, the power of emotional disquiet and how living with that creates a permanent stress. And I learned that if I was in cultures with teams that didn't chime with me and my values, or if the work itself that I was doing based on a corporate agenda didn't chime with my values, then again, I would be really compromising a part of me, suppressing a part of me, and that was creating stress and leading to burnout. So I had to make very radical decisions around which company I would work with, who I would work with, the work that I would actually do. And every time I aligned, came back into my own integrity, honored my values, then funnily enough, I didn't burn out, I flourished. And so that was such a huge journey for me again. So I've had the entrepreneurial element, the corporate element, and towards the about 2015, I had my last burnout. And at that point, people started asking me, how do you do it all? Because I was running side businesses whilst doing the corporate, whilst raising the children. And I just thought, okay, how do I do it? And I started sort of packaging it up and hosting workshops, free workshops here in my lounge on Saturday mornings. I'd put an advert on nextdoor.com and just say, are you interested in learning how to thrive? And more women started coming. And before I knew it, this had grown into me working with organizations like Amazon and Google and Snap and hosting retreats and just teaching really passionate individuals how to lean into your most magnificent life without falling over. So getting this book deal was a real moment for me of, yay, that's my big little girl dream that's come true. And so my book launches shortly, and I feel now is another moment where I'm hanging up my corporate hat, leaning back into entrepreneurialism, running the burnout business, and trying to spread the magic of this work out into the world far and wide.
That is an amazing journey you've been on so far, an amazing life. And I love what you mentioned there. There's the energy, attention, and focus that you apply to
Yeah.
getting these things done, to growing it, because we always worry that we have one foot on the brake, that oh, well, I know I need to I know I need to get the events going and post it next door and get the speaking gigs and do the prospecting, but but I don't want to burn out. So I'll just do like half of my potential. And we don't want that, right? We want to achieve these things. And so you say that what helped you is figuring out, you mentioned integrity and values, to kind of rewrite the story that you're telling yourself, to say, well, if I'm putting my kids in childcare for a few hours, does that make me a bad mother? Well, no, it means that I can excel here and I can excel there. I can be fully present in the business and then fully present when it's time to see the kids again. And so what comes to mind is just that, people talk about their values, and there's only so much space, right? You can't have like 51 values, you won't remember it. But if you have like 5 or 7, you say, hey, here's what's really important. And if there's these
Exactly.
other less important things that fall by the wayside, it's like, well, those are just little excuses, and I know what I can stick to and what I have more flexibility on. And I think we need that kind of assistance from someone like you to get your story and your training. And so as far as these events that you host and the people that you help and the problems they come to you with, is there something that you feel needs more attention? Is there an aspect about burnout and mindset that just isn't discussed enough lately?
Do you know what I'm going to encourage everyone to pay attention to is your own energy. I don't believe we pay enough attention to our natural energetic reserves. We moan a lot about not having enough energy, and we chase energy through caffeine or exercise or stimulants that aren't necessarily natural, but actually we hold all the energy we need within, and we have the ability to produce all the energy we need from within. The reason we don't have the energy to do what we want to do in our lives and we're also exhausted is because we're misdirecting our energy. So my number one tip is to stop worrying about time management, just focus on energy management. Because when you pay attention to what energizes you, you will eat differently, you will exercise differently, you will be in different environments, you will do different work. Your life will flow if you just follow what energizes you. And that's my biggest tip.
That's great. Follow what energizes you. And I think about that all the time. Like, my mind was blown when I heard that caffeine doesn't give you energy. It just blocks something in your brain that tells you that you're tired. And sometimes
Yeah,
I'll go and
the adenosine
I'll
receptor.
yeah, exactly. And then I'll go and I'll take a walk to get energy. And I used to think, oh, isn't my body like a battery? Won't that expend energy? It's like, no, that can give you fresh air. Sunlight, movement wakes you up. And so that's a great message that we need to be focusing on our energy, having this self-awareness, know ourselves to know like, well, I don't like when I get in this situation or that situation. And it seems like maybe, do you think there's a need to know the difference between like an uncomfortable growth that we should pursue versus if something's not serving us? Like it seems tricky to know the difference, doesn't it?
Well, again, tune into energy. So, follow the growth that makes you feel most alive and excited. We've all been in situations where a circumstance is pushing us to do work that we don't want to do, or to work with people who we don't really want to work with. And in that environment, you are just going to shrink and shrink and shrink. So, whilst there will always be a proportion of every day where there's a task that we don't necessarily want to do, we've got to make sure proportionally 80% of our time is in that fun dynamic. I want to do this. I'm with that person that I want to be with. And then if the 10 or 20% is just small and that's like, okay, I've got to do my tax return, that's
Yeah.
okay. But it's getting those proportions correctly, because then you're going to keep growing and expanding in alignment with your true integrity and with your values.
I like that idea of the proportions. Still have to be an adult, have to change the diapers, pay your taxes, do the accounting, fill up the gasoline in the car or the petrol, but we also have to have that good proportion for what serves us and what makes us come alive. And so I want to in a moment be sure to mention the workshops in the book, but before I do, I always am curious about the question I'm not asking, especially when I first meet someone and I'm just, oh, what would they want to know? So from you, Miss Bianca Best, what do you think is the missing hidden question in our conversation? What should I be asking you? I just don't know what to ask you.
Um, how important is graceful productivity to a life of success with grace?
How important is that?
It's everything. It's everything, because it's okay to want to be productive and to want to do a lot of stuff, but it's the graceful productivity that's the real key to us achieving the success that we want, and stop being busy on the stuff that doesn't matter. Just focus, follow that energy, follow the values, stay in integrity. And then when you're in this place of graceful productivity, the busyness is all so much more rewarding, and it's not being busy for busy's sake. It's beautiful, graceful productivity that's leading somewhere.
I like this idea of the graceful productivity. There is the worry that we need to maximize. And then you think about when in the Old West, with the police would be chasing a criminal, and the criminal would be like riding a horse through the night, and the U.S. Marshals, they would ride the horse for an hour, get off the horse and walk for an hour, ride the horse for an hour, and eventually the criminal would wear out their horse, they'd stop, but then the good guys chasing, because they were more strategic and they more of the graceful productivity, so to speak, they had a better long-term strategy to get there and catch the bank robber or whoever it was. And so it's helpful to think some of these thoughts. And so speaking to that, it's a podcast, so all there is time for is just a taste, a tease of what you're about. But then the idea is, if someone likes what you have to say, they say, oh my gosh, this upcoming book, these workshops, I need to check out what Bianca Best has to offer. And so what are some next steps here? If someone was impressed by your thoughts and ideas, what should they do next?
Ah, thank you. So visit my website, biancabest.com, and subscribe to my newsletter. So every week I give you an update on what's going on in my life, and I publish an article that's around how you can step into success with grace. And this covers everything from last week. I was talking about how we can trigger our cellular metabolism to improve so that we live longer, healthier. Other weeks I'll look at how we tap into our soulful yearnings and what that looks like, what integrity means, all sorts. So subscribe to my newsletter, and you can book a discovery call with me if you want to work one-to-one, or if you want me to come into your organization and consult. And it'll be my pleasure to speak to anyone who's interested in this really important work around burnout prevention.
Very great. And what your answer tells me is that there's a lot. There are so many nooks and crannies, and it changes all the time. And if we tried to drink from the fire hose and figure it all ourselves, we get burned out just from avoiding the burnout. So it helps to have someone in your corner who can say, hey, this week we're focusing on this. This week we're getting to the cellular stuff. This week we're talking about graceful productivity. And so it definitely helps to have someone in your corner to guide you through all of this. And we said that website is biancabest.com to be the star of your own story and deal with this big life problem of burnout. And then the book is new. The book is coming out. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, the book is out. It's available for pre-order now. It's available. It's out in the mainstream on March the 11th, and that's it. The baby is born, and it's out in the world. And I can't wait to see what the response is and to just empower everyone. It's 8 strategies to move from struggling to step into soaring.
Exciting. Baby number 5, right? You've got the 2 and then the 2 twins, and now you have big impact without burnout, 8 energizing strategies to stop struggling and start soaring. And you can see that right there on the website, biancabest.com. That's last name BEST, just like it sounds, and just like the kind of life that you will live once you get some of these struggles unlocked. And there will always be problems, there'll always be difficulties, but you don't need to make it so hard on yourself. You don't need to spin your wheels. You don't need to just keep on living life the way that you've been living. There is a better way, and Bianca Best from BIANCABEST.com can help you get there with her workshops and her book, Big Impact Without Burnout. And while people are going there, Bianca, it's time for one last thing. It's the scary part of the show where I try to stump you a little bit, try to put you on the spot. I ask for a quote or lesson that has served you in business or life that you want to pass on to us. So what comes to mind for you as far as a fun quote or lesson?
I love that you've tried to stump me. And as a writer, I mustn't be stumped because I should be good with words. So actually, I'm going to use the quote that I open my book with, which is a Stephen Covey quote. So author of 7 Habits. And it is that your greatest work is always ahead of you. And I believe that so much. I believe that if we properly lean into life and expand and learn and grow, then our greatest work is always ahead of us. And that's quite exciting, isn't it?
It is, and it's optimistic, and it tells us that our best years are ahead. As incredible as it's been, you haven't seen nothing yet. And BiancaBest.com is the hub to find out about especially the Big Impact Guidebook, full of practical steps, tools, and strategies showing women how to transform manic busyness into meaningful productivity, both at home and at work, endorsed by Miss Arianna Huffington herself. This book has changed lives, and it can change your life as long as you're open to these new ideas and you don't just be a passive spectator thinking, my life could be better. No, let's make it happen. Let's get past burnout. Let's achieve our dreams. Let's get to our goals. And Miss Bianca Best from BiancaBest.com is going to help us do that. So thank you very much, Bianca, for stopping by, being playful, having a lot of fun. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. Really wonderful to talk to you today.
All right.